I have one more area of the front right hand inner wheel arch to repair, and I've decided to leave this till after I've done an initial bit of spray painting on it, because I want to be able to get up on the inside of my repairs so that I have good quality paint on both sides. So this is the last bit of cutting out that I need to do in this section, and I'll just remove the last bit of rust, and that'll give me even more access for the spray gun. A little bit awkward cutting off this bit just at the edge of another section that I welded in. I used the cutting disc there to get it off, and now I have a grinding disc on it, and that'll just help me get that pointy edge down to something straight that I can weld onto again. Using just the hand wire brush over the back of the welds that you can see from the engine bay. That's the whole section there that you can see now. I gave it a big clean up with the wire wheel on the grinder and got the surfaces nice and clean. I should have probably degreased at this point, but I didn't. I was rushing on a short winter's day while the sun was out and warming up my restoration tent really well, so I left that out, but the surfaces were pretty clean. This was a little tab that I'd left on the formed panel that I'd welded in on the outer wheel arch edge, and it was so small I'd kept missing it, and it was really annoying. I'd left it behind. So there's one little weld to do on this. There was just a little bit to trim off in order for it to fold over on itself. You can see bits of debris falling off from other sections as I send shockwaves through the van with the hammer. I plug welded the two holes I drilled in that, and then I did a continuous weld just along the edge of it to blend it into the rest of the original panel. I ground that down then with the flap wheel on the grinder, so it's all fairly neat, and a bit of filler at a later stage will tidy up all of that. So just getting set up to paint. This is a Noval Epoxy Primer that I got from Mixed Garage, and I've got the right hardener for it there as well. I'm making a silly little mistake here. I'm about to filter it into the jug, which is a mistake I made when I was doing some painting on the charade as well. It will take too long to go through there, you can't really measure it out, and it's unnecessary. I only need to filter it at the last stage going back into the gun. Anyway, got around my mistake now. So I'm just measuring out 200mm to do this section. I just estimated that should cover it. It's a 1-to-1 mix with this epoxy primer, so that makes it very handy. So I'll just throw in another 200ml of hardener, so I'll have 400 to cover this area. There's no thinning required at this ratio. If you go to a wet on wet technique where you might be putting your top coat on much sooner, there's a mix with thinner for that. I can use my filter now. It's handy, all these bits and pieces I bought when I was doing the Charade's engine bay. So that's filtered into my Jefferson spray gun from Efox Engineers. So I've got a fully air-fed mask, and that's fed from an air supply outside the garage, so I'm not recirculating air inside the garage. Being able to close down the garage door is pretty cool. I didn't have to mask off anything in the garage. I plan on painting this garage door, so I can use that for a little sample. Takes a little while to settle in with the new paint, kind of judge its characteristics as you get going. I'm not a very experienced spray painter, so I'm gaining experience as I go along. I found with this one that I needed to calm down a little bit and make my movements just a little bit slower to deliver an even coat of paint. But it certainly was a satisfying flow, and it felt good as it was going on. It seems to be quite a thick covering and quite forgiving of these quite rough layered surfaces with different levels of paint structure removed or still there. I've chosen to use an epoxy primer because I'm only doing a section, as you can see obviously, of the engine bay, and this paint should be waterproof and therefore rust proof right from the start, and it's ideal for leaving a section that can wait for top coats later on. Now it probably will get another primer over it, and then a top coat of colour. But for now, this is ideal, and it stops things rusting while I'm working in other areas. Because although this is a good garage shelter for working on the van, it's not a proper floor. Moisture does come in across the floor, so it is quite a humid area, and that's another reason why I was pushing through this spray job, because we're already getting into the winter now. But it's great to have this workspace for the van. You can see now how I'm getting paint up into areas that would be otherwise inaccessible after I weld in the final panel. I'm putting paint over the repair I did to the external arch. This will all get filler later, but I'd prefer to do all the filler work and sanding at the one time. This should prevent rust for now. I gave it all a further coat of paint just as the temperature was starting to drop. The 400ml was perhaps slightly too much for all of this, but I just laid it on thick and used it all up. I'm really pleased with how this section is turning out, and it's very motivating for the rest of the project.